Yo. Okay, so here's the thing. There are 3 ed sounds in English when we are speaking in the past, or using past participles, or using a handful of adjectives as well. But for some reason, I have no idea why, the majority of Brazilians think there is only one ed sound. And that's not correct, and that causes a lot of problems. So let's go. The 3 ed sounds in English, how to use them, when to use them, and how to speak in the past like a native speaker. Bora. All right, so when we have a verb in the past, or any past participle, or any adjective, not any adjective, but a lot of adjectives in the past, we often represent this with an ed in written language. And this can be very confusing for you guys because technically, phonetically, the way we speak, there are actually 3 different sounds of the ed. So we have the normal sound that Brazilians tend to make, which is adding the extra id, like walked, which is not correct. And then we have the T sound, walked, which would be correct. And we also have the D sound, which is very similar to the T, for example, in grabbed. So if you are only going to remember one thing from this video, please, if you're not going to watch all the videos or not really going to pay attention or retain a lot of information, the one thing you should know is that the extra id sound, like walked, that does not happen very much in English. We use it very infrequently, and the most common pronunciation of the ed is the T. Walked, talked, laughed. But hopefully, ideally, you are going to pay attention to all these videos, and you really want to master speaking in the past in English. So let's take a deeper, more detailed look into each sound, when to make it, how to make it, etc. Let's go. All right, so let's start with the T sound. So the T sound is definitely the most common sound. I'm not exactly sure about the percentages of how much we use each one, but far and away, my perception is that we use the T sound most frequently. So it's the most important for you. So to make the T sound, all we do is add an extra T to the verb or the adjective or whatever the word is. So for example, in the word walk, all we do is add the T sound at the end. So we say walked. Or for example, in the word laugh, all we do is put a T sound at the end. So in the past, we say laughed. You also see this in a lot of words like hope. In the past would be hoped. Stop, stopped. You're getting the idea, right? So producing this sound is pretty easy. I think it's relatively easy, but knowing when to use it, that is the important thing. So let's take a look. So we use the T sound when the last sound in a word, normally a verb, is unvoiced. So I hope you remember the difference between voice and voiceless. But if a sound is unvoiced, that means that your vocal cords, that your voice box is not activated. So when you produce a sound, there's no vibration. Like, for example, the F sound, f, or the P sound, p. No vibration. F, p. Cool? So to be more specific, because I know it's difficult to think if a sound is voiced or unvoiced, to think about that when you're having conversations, we use this unvoiced T sound when a word ends in the sound F, P, S, CH, SH, and the K sound. Almost remembered them all. Cool. But please remember that we are talking about the last sound in a word, right? We're not talking about the last letter in its written representation. So for example, the word hope, we have an E at the end in writing, but the last sound is the P sound, hope. We're not saying hope-y. So in the past, this takes the T sound, hoped. So some common, super common examples are, for example, walk in the past, walked. Talk in the past, talked. Laugh in the past, laughed. Stop in the past is stopped. Finish in the past is finished. And let me think of one more. Watch. Watching Game of Thrones. I watched Game of Thrones. T sound. So the important thing to remember here is that there's no extra syllable added, just the sound. Okay?